back to 1 Samuel, and we're probably not going to get through this because I don't want to talk that fast. It's a survey. I'll probably run a little bit over, but not too bad. So far in Samuel, this is where we've been. Hannah is chosen, Samuel is given, Eli is rebuked, Samuel rises, and you have the ark escapades. And again, some of those are funny as far as how God treated the enemies of Israel. And then we have Saul's saga. We're going to be looking at that today. This is Saul's saga part 1. Then David rises while Saul falls. That's going to be hopefully the final section of going through 1 Samuel. So Saul's saga. What I'm going to do is kind of like taking a look at some of the characters involved in the story. So we'll be jumping back and forth a little bit in 1 Samuel, but just hang along. It'll be a wild ride. Samuel. Now, we've met Samuel before. He is the son of a formerly barren woman. His name means heard of God. We asked God for Samuel, and look what we got. We got a baby boy. And remember that God gave Hannah 5 more children after this, after she had devoted, along with Elkanah, Samuel to the Lord. Now, Samuel is a non-Levitical replacement for Eli and his sons, okay, Eli and company. I didn't have enough room to write Hophni and Phinehas on that line, so I just put in company. Interesting that God uses someone who is not of the right tribe to kind of take over the priesthood for a time. Was he qualified? Not terribly. He started serving the Lord, hearing from the Lord when he was a little guy. We don't know exactly how little, but we know that he was little. And what does it take to serve the Lord? It takes a willing and obedient heart. He hears the voice of the Lord from very early on, and we as adults, we need to be careful that we don't hear the commentary or sometimes the concerns of folks who are a little bit younger. We need to listen because they might be right on the money. They might be looking at things that we have overlooked because we have all of our habits, and sometimes they just like to ask difficult questions, and everyone should be answered. So Samuel fills the function of priest, prophet, and judge. A prophet's primary ministry was not to tell the future, but was to tell the people of God, straighten up, fly right. What are you doing? You're supposed to be serving the Lord, and you're worshiping idols? Why on earth do I have to tell you to put away your idols? That's why. So that's kind of what the prophet would do. Usually confrontational because we have hard hearts and we don't listen unless somebody sometimes gets in our face and talks to us in very stern and sometimes loud voices, fulfilling the role of judge. So he is kind of like the last of the judges of Israel, following after Samson. Now, he is bold. If you are a person and you get into the king's face and you say, "Oh, King Saul, what are you doing? This is crazy. You're disobeying God. Saul, knock it off." He is the king. What does he have the power to do? Yeah, off with your head. Yeah. And sometimes it was in the most brutal of ways. They weren't very nice when they executed people. So he's bold, and he actually takes the risk of rebuking King Saul at the prompting of God. So he's kind of bold. He doesn't play games. And unfortunately, he raises corrupt sons who did not follow in his ways, who turned aside, and they turned the whole judging thing and probably even priestly type duties into profit. They were getting rich off of their corruption. Now, Eli had 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas. They were doing the same kind of stuff that Samuel's sons were doing, which is sort of ironic. So I'm going to trust that Samuel tried to raise his boys right. And sometimes you can do all the right things as a parent and have children who turn out to be scoundrels. There's a family that I know, and they have three of their 4 children wonderfully serving the Lord. But one of them, he's a scoundrel. He's actually my favorite because he was always honest and he spoke very boldly. But just because a child turns out to be a scoundrel doesn't mean it was bad parenting. Now, the people, they desire a king, and it's kind of hurtful to Samuel. Because Samuel, he's like the judge. He's doing sort of like kingly things without the title. But the people, they come to Samuel, and they say, this is in chapter 8. When Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons as judges for Israel. The name of the firstborn was Joel, and the name of the second was Abijah, and they served at Beersheba. But his sons did not walk in his ways. They turned aside after dishonest gains, accepted bribes, perverted justice. So the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. They said to him, "You're old." Don't you love to hear that? "You're old. Your sons do not walk in your ways." And he knew that. "Now appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have." So he kind of backs off from that judge role. Now, he's still doing some of the priestly stuff. He's still doing the prophet stuff, but he's backed off from the role of judge because now a king is involved. So he kind of backs off, and I think his feelings are a little bit hurt. Then there's the Phillies. Now, the Phillies were not necessarily a Semitic people. They came from elsewhere, and they settled in on the coast, and they were fishing people. Hence, they worshiped the fish god Dagon. But they were a long-term enemy of Israel. Indeed, any people group that was around any other people group usually became enemies. And sometimes they were frenemies because, you've heard the thing of the enemy. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So they did kind of that stuff. And so it was wars going on all the time, people killing people groups, genocide. It was just part of the fabric of the culture at that point. So the Philistines, now they knew the power of God. So when God thunders, the Philistines flee. That's in, I believe, chapter 6. My memory recalls me correctly. Yeah, they flee. There's this big meeting that all the Israelites are having at Mizpah. And the Philistines are going, "Oh, good, they're all there gathered together. We're going to come and attack them." But the Lord thundered. He threw the Philistines into such a panic that they were routed before the Israelites. So they knew of the power of God, and this whole thing with the Ark of the Covenant, where they possessed it for a while, and they got some really nasty things going on in their bodies. And so they send the Ark back. So they know the power of God. They know this. But remember the song, "My dog's better than your dog." Is it "My dog's bigger" or better? Because the kennel ration ad. "My dog's bigger than your better, than your dog. My dog's better because he eats kennel ration." They should have known. They should have understood that the God of Israel was better than their God because the God of Israel wiped them out more than once. But people are slow to forget. They're stubborn. They want to follow the gods that they've got. They were quite stubborn about keeping the conflict going. Every time it would settle down, well, lo and behold, hey, there's some people we can conquer. We can take some of their stuff and use it for ourselves. What a great idea. And there was always warfare going on. Economic dominance. The Philistines would not allow the Israelites to have things to sharpen their tools with. No blacksmiths. So if you needed something sharpened, like your plowshare or maybe a cattle prod, you'd have to go to the Philistines. Now, the Philistines were keeping track, of course. Okay, we have now sharpened 8,000 cattle prods this week. That's probably not a terribly good thing because a cattle prod can be used to, prod us in a most pointy way. Not a good thing. So they were working to keep complete economic dominance. This kept the Israelites underneath their thumb. Now, they were afraid of Israel's God. If we take a look in chapter 14 of 1 Samuel, verse 15. It's here. Oh, yes. A panic struck the whole army. So Jonathan and his buddy, they attack a small Philistine outpost, and the Philistines are terrified. They're struck with terror. The ground shook. It was a panic sent by God. So they were afraid of Israel's God. They knew what Israel's God could do. There were stories. Then the Israelites, they saw that Samuel's sons were not fit to continue in ministry. Now, this had to be somewhat hurtful to Samuel, but, it is what it is. They wanted a king for stability. Okay, if we have a king, we don't have this prophet thing. We have this prophet for a short time. Then he dies off. The people get evil. Then we get another judge comes in. Then the judge dies. The people get evil. This whole pattern. Maybe they're saying, look, we just want to stop this pattern. We want a king, but also we want to be like everybody else around us. We want to be just like the pagans. We want to have a king. Now, Samuel will clearly warn Israel what it takes to get a king. He says, verse 10 of chapter 8, "This is what the king who will reign over you will do. He will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses. Now, if they're serving with chariots and horses, that puts them, of course, in danger. They will run in front of his chariots. Oh, isn't that nice? Okay, why would you have soldiers run in front of your chariots? So they fall before your chariots do. Some he will assign, and it just goes on and on. He's going to take a tenth of your grain and of your vintage and give it to his taxation, organized government. It gets expensive. It gets to be annoying. Again, how many of us love to pay taxes? It was an evil, untrusting request which God honored. Now, the text is very, very clear on this. We probably won't get there because, again, time is taken away. But it was viewed as an evil, untrusting request which God honored anyway. Sometimes God gives us what we want, but it's not his best for us. This is why we ask and we trust. We don't demand and we don't, I guess, keep bothering him with stuff, because maybe he'll give us something that we ask for that's bad for us. Now, a king would be of absolutely no hope if the people were evil. We will see this throughout the history of Israel as we go through this history. Verse 25 of chapter 12, Samuel says, "If you persist in doing evil, both you and your king will be swept away." So it's great to have a king, but you all need to get together and obey and to follow the Lord and stop being idolaters. Idolatry was a consistent problem with Israel the whole way through. Now, my contention would be that the current system of judges was actually working. Go back to chapter 7, verse 10. While Samuel was sacrificing the burnt offering, the Philistines drew near to engage Israel in battle. So again, Samuel fulfilling the prophet, priest, and judge role at this point. But that day the Lord thundered with a loud thunder against the Philistines and threw them into such a panic that they were routed before the Israelites. The men of Israel rushed out of Mizpah and pursued the Philistines, slaughtering them all along the way below Beth-kar. So it was working. If the people would respond to the judge and they would be obedient to the Lord was good to them. The problem was their conduct, not having a king. So the current system was actually working. So I think the people are saying, hey, God, you've got this system, but we don't like it. We want something better than what you offer. We want a king like everybody else. No, nothing helps hard hearts except for repentance. Again, back up in chapter 7. It was a long time, 20 years in all, that the ark remained in Kiriath Jearim, and all the people of Israel mourned and sought after the Lord. And in seeking after the Lord, they get together. We're going to follow the Lord, and God bless them. That's what has to happen for God to bless a people. They needed to follow and obey, not have a king. They knew what they needed to do. Now then there's King Saul. He was an impressive young man without equal among all of his contemporaries, and he was tall. He was a head taller than all the other people. Again, I love our pastoral group within Converge. We get together and we meet, and I'm the shortest person there. I'm the hobbit. They're all the what do you call the king, the fighters of Gondor? What's that? Yeah, no, they're not the orcs. No, well, yeah, they are the orcs, and I'm a hobbit. No, yeah, they're all they're like the royal people. They're like the elves. So tall. Many of them aren't slender like the elves are. But anyway, Saul was the kind of king that people wanted. Hey, look, he's tall, he's good looking, he comes from a great family, and wow, he's just amazing. We're going to take him. And they were so happy. Now, this was the man that God chose, but God chose a man who was the kind of king that the people wanted. He was from a small tribe, Benjamin, and he's from a puny clan. Lord, what are you doing? I'm from the smallest tribe. I'm from a puny clan. I'm nothing. But nonetheless, he was chosen by God for the task that God had at hand. Did he do it well? Well, he had a good start, but after that, he did not do well at all. Now, he was initially changed by God. Again, you can read that in the text. It was a thing where I don't understand the exact situation. There were a group of prophets. They were prophesying and doing things like that. They were marching, and Saul joined them, and he was also prophesying. I don't know exactly what that means, but it indicates that he was definitely changed by God for this. He started well. If we look in 1 Samuel chapter 11, Nahash the Ammonite. What a great evil name, Nahash the Ammonite. Went up and besieged Jabesh Gilead. And all the men of Jabesh said to him, make a treaty with us and we will be subject to you, like we give. But Nahash the Ammonite replied, I will make a treaty with you only on the condition that I gouge out the right eye of every one of you and so bring disgrace on all Israel. The elders of Jabesh said to him, well, give us 7 days. We'll send messengers. If nobody comes to rescue you, the eyes have it. Ha ha ha. Sorry, that was not planned. So when the messengers came to Gibeah of Saul and reported these terms to the people, they wept aloud. Just then Saul was returning from the fields behind his oxen, and he asked, what's wrong with the people? Why are they weeping? They repeated to him what the men of Jabesh had said. Verse 6, when Saul heard their words, the Spirit of God came on him in power, and he burned with anger. This is a righteous, a holy anger. He took a pair of oxen, cut them into pieces, and sent the pieces by messengers throughout Israel, proclaiming, this is what will be done to the oxen of anyone who does not follow Saul and Samuel. So he's doing good. He says, guys, show up, or I'm going to take you down. Show up. So they showed up, and there was a great and a glorious victory. He rescued Jabesh Gilead. Had a good start, taking out the enemies. However, he makes a big mistake. He is impatient. Make sure I've got the right place. Oh, yeah, here we go. So there's this victory, but then the next time, there's another conflict. Chapter 13. Saul had chosen 3,000 men from Israel. 2,000 were with him at Michmash in the hill country of Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan at Gibeah and Benjamin. The rest of the men he sent back to their homes. So Jonathan, he starts some trouble. We'll get to Jonathan in a little bit. And all the Philistines now, they want to have a great fight. And so they want to make the sacrifice for this. Boy, they should have put the exact reference down. Oh, I think I cover it here. There's so many. I've been digging through all these passages. So Saul wants to make an offering to confirm the Lord's favor before they go into the battle. And as they're waiting, Samuel said, oh, I'll be there on a certain time. And Samuel is running late. He's running later and later. And some of the men begin to drift away. And so Saul then takes the sacrificial knife into his own hands, and he does the sacrifice. He should not have. And as he's through with the sacrifice, Samuel walks up and says, what have you done? Oh, I saw that you were late in coming, and so I took your place because I wanted to seek the Lord's favor. We don't seek the Lord's favor through sacrifice. We seek the Lord's favor through the O word, obedience. That's how we seek the Lord's favor. But Saul can't wait, and he can't trust God, and so he blames Samuel for the error of his impatience. So, Samuel asks Saul, why did you do this? Well, I saw that you were late, so it's kind of your fault. Recall Adam in the Garden of Eden. Lord, this woman that you gave me. Okay, so you gave me something that was someone who is incompetent, so God, is actually your fault. Saul is not after God's heart. Now we're going to jump ahead a little bit to verses 24 and 25. And we'll get into this nasty business a little bit later, hopefully. Saul admits to Samuel, I was afraid of the people, so I gave in to them. And he led them in disobedience to the command of the Lord. He was afraid of the people. So Saul was not a man after God's heart. He was after the heart of the people. So character flaws. From humility, there's at one point where the people say, hey, all these people, Saul, who wanted you as king, where are they now? Bring them out to us. And they're going to do some damage to them. And Saul goes, no. Don't worry about it. It's okay. Let it go. And I think he ends up being quite insecure. So chapter 13, verses 8 through 14. Again, Saul waited 7 days, the time set by Samuel. Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and Saul's men began to scatter. So he said to them, bring me the burnt offering and the fellowship offerings. Saul offered up the burnt offering. Just as he finished making the offering, Samuel arrived. I think, and this is Hugonian thought, I think that Saul is a bit insecure. Will God really be with me in this battle? Will you really send Samuel? Are all these things going to happen? I think he's becoming very insecure. It's just, as I'm looking at the text, verse 18 of chapter 14, they're getting ready again to battle the Philistines. And Saul said to Ahiah, bring the ark of God. Why would you bring the ark of God? It's a good luck charm. Did he need the ark of God to fight this battle? No, but it's almost like a good luck charm, like maybe God wasn't really with him. So I think that he's getting insecure, which is a very different thing than humility. Humility, you don't exalt yourself over others. Insecurity, you're doubting God. He becomes kind of arrogant. So there's this battle going on, and the Israelites are doing well. However, verse 24 of chapter 14, now the men of Israel were in distress that day because Saul had bound the people under an oath, saying, cursed be any man who eats food before evening comes, before I have avenged myself on my enemies. Not the enemies of Israel, not the enemies of the Lord, but my enemies. These people, they have offended me. I am the king. I think he's becoming arrogant. And how dumb. Okay, to not just tell you guys, hey, you can't have food or drink water until the battle's done. You got to have food. Send them Gatorade or something. I mean, they need some energy. So I think he's becoming arrogant, but nonetheless, he still is effective as a warrior. For in chapter 14, verse 47, after Saul had assumed rule over Israel, he fought against the enemies on every side, Moab, Ammonites, Edom, the kings of Zobah, the Philistines. Wherever he turned, he inflicted punishment on them. He fought valiantly and defeated the Amalekites, delivering Israel from the hands of those who had plundered them. So just as I'm looking at this text, I'm thinking that he's like, hey, I'm a pretty good fighter. Look at all the great stuff I'm doing. And I think he forgot who chose him. Big error number 2, and this is like a terribly critical error. He gives a modified obedience. Now, we have a hard time getting this kind of thing, but the command was given. Go to verse 17 here of chapter 15. Okay. I got to go back a little bit. I keep looking at the clock. The Amalekites were supposed to be totally wiped out, totally destroyed. Kind of like, remember Jericho? Everything was supposed to be wiped out. You don't take anything. The Amalekites were supposed to be defeated in this kind of a way. Go away, leave the Amalekites. I don't destroy you. So he's telling other people to get away from them. So they go in to attack them. They're supposed to destroy everything that breathed, animals, the whole thing. However, Saul did not do this. Look at verse 12. He sets up a monument in his own honor. It's just really bad. So verse 7, Saul attacked the Amalekites all the way from Havilah to Shur, east of Egypt. He took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive. What was he supposed to do to Agag, the king of the Amalekites? He was supposed to kill him. And all his people he totally destroyed. But everybody else he totally destroyed with the sword. But Saul and the army spared Agag and the best of the sheep and the cattle, the fat cows and the lambs, and everything that was good. They were unwilling to completely destroy these, but everything that was despised and weak they totally destroyed. Why would they save the good stuff? We're going to have a potluck. We're going to sacrifice them to the Lord. And of course, if you sacrifice to the Lord, you get to share in this. So, they're getting the best of stuff because they're going to celebrate with the best of stuff. What were they supposed to do? Samuel reaches Saul after he sets up the monument. And Saul says, "The Lord bless you. I have carried out the Lord's instructions." Then what is this bleating of sheep in my ears? What is the lowing of cattle that I hear? He modified the command of the Lord before all the people. And so God says, I'm sorry, I'm done with you. You can't be king anymore. You have messed up too badly. And the king's mess up affects all of the people. Okay? Not good. We got there. So God rejected him as a king. Now, if you reject him as a king, that means no dynasty. And to some of these kings, their dynasty was very important. This means that Jonathan is not going to be king. His sin affects his entire family. Verse 35, very interesting verse. Until the day Samuel died, he did not go and see Saul again. God was done with him, so Samuel did not go to see Saul anymore, though Samuel mourned for him. The Lord was grieved that he made Saul king over Israel. Now, when it says that he grieved, this does not mean that God was making a mistake. The idea in the Hebrew here is God is sighing. Okay, so he's grieved in the same way that you would grieve if you sent somebody to do a task and they messed it up because they were just doofuses. I thought I could rely on him. So it's that idea of grieving, not God saying I made a mistake. So if somebody, they'll call that out. Jonathan. I like Jonathan. I'm going to like him more as the story continues. A great, loyal guy. And he's loyal to his dad, even to his death. He had great faith. Now in 14:6, he says that the Lord saves by many or a few. It doesn't matter. We're going to go fight these guys. How many people we have with us? In this case, it was just maybe 2 verses 20. If God is with us, we've got this. Saul fears the enemy enough, so he's got to try to do charms and try to offer the sacrifice. So Saul is becoming fearful, and Jonathan is becoming bolder and bolder. The story continues. We will see his great humility before God. I really like the guy. He's one of my favorite biblical characters. Now, God consistently desires exclusive, deep fellowship with his people. This is what he's after. But the people, what do we tend to do? We tend to follow and seek to find other things. God is always working, often behind the scenes, to advance his redemptive work. This is so cool. As I'm looking at this, it occurs to me that, the Ruth story, where this whole little thing, to bring David in, this is going on at the same time where Elkanah and what's her name? Hannah. Where they go and Samuel is promised. So while that's going on, I think the whole Ruth thing, I think these are contemporary stories that are going on. So in all the big workings, God has got this little thread that he's working to develop. God also expects that his commands will not be modified. Okay, don't modify the commands of God. It does not work well. What God desires is our shalom, our total peace, confidence with him and with the world. God is very patient because he is very loving. I would not have been as patient as God was. Mess up and you're done. That's why I'm not God. Take homes. God is always in the mix. Always. He's always got something going on. We might not recognize it. Maybe we'll see it years in advance. Number 2, of course you are puny. Of course you are. Who can stand before God and say they're not puny? But we're also chosen by God and changed. Jonathan said, nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or a few. So if you're puny, it doesn't matter. It's God that works in us. Obedience trumps sacrifice. Paul says in Romans chapter 12, I urge you therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present yourselves as a living sacrifice. It doesn't say dig deeper into your pockets, but let your bodies be a living sacrifice as we live out Christ before other people. Fear God and not people. What can people do to you? Well, they can do some pretty nasty things. What can God do to you? A really nasty eternity. To obey is better than to sacrifice. To heed is better than the fat of rams. So I guess that would be like ram bacon. I don't know, but I mean I love bacon. And I sometimes, Scott, if you ever hear of ram bacon, let me know. I'd like to try some of that stuff. The story is not about you. It's not about me. However, God has a part for us to play in his story. We need to play our part well, loving God, honoring him, obeying him, but we also need to be willing to shift roles. Samuel had to shift roles. He was operating as the judge. Saul comes in. He steps aside. Always be sensitive that maybe God has used you in this respect for a long time. And maybe that goes away and God has got something new for you to do. A different kind of ministry. Maybe because we're old, we can't keep up as well anymore. But God has got something for us at all times. He's always working in the background all the time. He's always planning, and we are a part of his plan, even though we might see ourselves indeed as being, quite the